we can start the recording, and I'd like to call this meeting of the school committee Wednesday, May 19th to order at 6:34 p.m. Dr. Burnham? Oh, you're muted.
That's usually Mr. Santry's role, the mute monitor. Good evening, everyone. As a preliminary matter, this is Dr. Burnham, Superintendent of Schools. I will do a roll call to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mrs. Carol Ashenbo,
Yes.
Mrs. Laura Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Brian Leighton,
Yes.
Ms. Sophie Shapiro,
Yes.
Mr. Seamus Kelly, not with us yet.
Nope.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Recording Secretary, Ms. Susan Summers.
Yes.
Business Manager, Mr. Michael Cassidy.
Yes.
Director of Special Services, Ms. Juliana Hanscom.
Yes.
And we also have our Health and Safety Officer, Mrs. Katie McGuire, this evening.
Yes.
All right, I will turn it back over to you, Mrs. Ashambo.
All righty. In accordance with the requirements of open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel and streaming on Facebook Live at a later time. And this meeting of the Lunenburg School Committee is being conducted remotely. The town of Lunenburg, in response to COVID-19, is currently following the guidance from the Lunenburg Board of Health, Massachusetts Department of Health, and the CDC regarding the virus and steps communities can take to prevent the spread. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, Section 20, all public meetings are being conducted remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town website on the COVID-19 Information Center page, accessed through the town manager's webpage, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Lunenburg School Committee is convening by telephone conference, video conference via Zoom, as posted on the town's website, identifying on how the public may join. The Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and that take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, Carol Ashambo, the Vice Chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, members will have the opportunity to provide any comment, question, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses. Each member of the public has 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Just a message before we get started from our new member. And he is stuck in another meeting until 7 o'clock. I will tell him that he is welcome to join us when he works his way free. All righty. So as the chair's report, I wanted to welcome Mr. Seamus Kelly to the school committee. I will do that again after executive session. Hopefully he is able to join us then. But we are very happy to have him join us. So now we need to go to executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining or contract negotiations. We will return to public session. And Mr. Leighton,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
and a second. Ms. Kelly
I will second that motion.
and a roll call.
So
Mrs.
just
Arsham. Oh, go ahead, Mr.
for discussion, I guess, has there a link been sent out?
No, so we're going to try to enter a breakout room this evening.
Okay.
And I would just say that I will pause the recording once the vote is taken before we enter into the room, and I will resume the recording when we re-enter the meeting.
Okay.
Does that sound all right to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so now we're ready for roll call vote.
I believe so.
Mrs. Archambault,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
and Ms. Shapiro.
Yes.
Very good. All right, fingers crossed.
Here we go. Okay, I think we're set. It is 7:15, and I think we can continue with our meeting in public session. The first agenda item is public comment for any item on the agenda. Is there first any committee member with a public comment? And is there someone from the public with a public comment? I'm not seeing hands raised. My scroller helpers are telling me that this is not my strong point, are telling me that there's no one with any public comments, so we're going to move forward to review and approve minutes from regular session on May 5th and May 15th. Were there any corrections to any of those minutes, Dr. Burnham?
None that I was alerted to, no.
Okay. Is there someone that would like to make a motion to approve those minutes? Mr. Leighton?
Yes, I'd make a motion to approve the regular session minutes from May 5th and May 15th, 2021.
A second? Ms. Kelly?
I will second that motion.
All right,
And roll call vote.
absolutely.
Okay. Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
and Mrs. Archambault.
Yes. Next on the agenda is to review and approve line item transfers. I don't believe we have any, do we?
There are no line item transfers this evening.
All right, then we will move to the superintendent's report.
All right, so an update for everyone on the LMHS internet issues that we've been having. So as you know, we've been experiencing some intermittent outages of the internet at LMHS. We've actually noticed that this is an ongoing challenge since last year, and we've tried several times to troubleshoot, thought we had the problem resolved, and then it pops up again. We did bring in a consultant to help determine the root cause, and we believe at this point that it was the firewall that was giving us the challenge, and a new firewall was installed yesterday afternoon. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed that that was actually the problem and that things are smooth sailing for the rest of the year. A little bit of an update for our PACSAL. We are pleased to announce that Matthew and Lindsay Brenner are the new co-chairpersons for the Lunenburg PACSAL. The PACSAL has grown to not only include children and their families participating in the IEP process, but also those on a 504 plan and/or those receiving Title I and EL services. We are working diligently to bring presentations and workshops forward through Paxel. We do have a new email for Paxel, and that's lunenburg.paxel@gmail.com. Summer Meals Program. So as you might remember, last summer, we participated with Fitchburg in a summer meals program. Meals were distributed from TC Passios. Again, this year, free summer meals for children and teens up to 18 years old will start on June 28th and run through August 12th. This will be an open site located at TC Passios. There is no need to sign up. Grab and go meals will be served Monday through Friday between 11:30 and 12:15. Lunch and breakfast are available for the next day, extra meals on Friday for the weekends. And anybody who would like more information on that can reach out to our food service director, Nadine Lorenzen. We received communication from Comcast. At the end of last year, Congress established the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program. And on February 25th, the FCC adopted an order to implement the program designed to help low-income households and households that have suffered a substantial loss of income in order to connect to the internet and stay connected through the COVID crisis. So there are benefits available. Anybody who is interested should explore the Xfinity website at xfinity.com/learn/internet-service/EBB. Again, just a reminder that Friday, May 28th is an early release professional development day, and that is the start of the Memorial Day holiday weekend. And we would also want to remind everyone that Monday is the holiday and there would be no school, therefore, on May 31st. And a few staffing changes and announcements for everyone. We want to congratulate Mrs. Tammy Perry. She has decided to retire after 26 years of service dedicated to the Lunenburg children through the extended day and the early learning center programs. Her retirement will be effective July 1st. And in true dedicated form, she did offer to be available and accessible to assist in any way possible, particularly with the summer program that will be beginning shortly after she retires. Additionally, Mrs. Annika Scott will remain in the Director of Teaching and Learning position. She really did a wonderful job in the role this year. And she and Mrs. Rebecca Hyde, our Title I coordinator, are a really effective curriculum leadership team. And I am looking forward to the good work that we have ahead of us next year. And lastly, Mr. Rob McGrath will be leaving the high school principal position and moving to the middle school assistant principal position next year. So we will be initiating a search for a new high school principal. And that's all I have for you this evening.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on, the next item is a student representative report. I don't see a student representative here.
We do not have one this evening.
All right, then we'll continue. New business, special education program, evaluation and determination.
So I would invite Mrs. Hanscom, our Director of Special Services, to give you this update.
Good evening. So I know that Kate has dropped these reports in your folders, so you have access to them along with the detail, the data to support them. But if you have any further questions after I'm done with this, please let me know and I can walk you through that because I don't want to read through everything. But basically in special education, DESE requires us to annually do an evaluation of our programs. And it's not all programs every year, it's certain aspects of each, so that maybe in a 3 or a 5 year cycle, we've hit all of the programs in special ed. And that could be inclusion, could be related services, it could be our sub-separate programs, it could be our office, it could be a variety of programming that we can do the evaluations on. So for last year and this year, you can guess what the primary focus was of our evaluations. Normally they're done at the end of the year. So when March hit, we hadn't gotten out our surveys yet for the bulk of 2019, 2020. So we kind of shifted focus. And in looking back, we decided to do a program evaluation of our communication, not only with staff, but also with families in the times of COVID, and what we learned from that. So what the evaluation showed is it talked about how I held weekly meetings with staff throughout COVID, and how I developed two separate websites. I developed a staff website that was dedicated just for staff, and also a parent website that was specifically for parents, but during COVID times, where I updated them and I gave them links to if they had questions about state issues that were coming up, or from Russell Johnson, who's the Director of Special Services for the state as well. So what happened in the report is they listed those websites. They talked about the drop-in meetings that I had, and how even at the beginning of this school year, what I did is I met with staff every day for the first few weeks. I had drop-in meetings at the end of the day to help staff with that transition that went forward right in the fall. And then I spaced them out until staff felt comfortable enough to not necessarily need that kind of frequent check-in. And I know one quote from a parent was that the level of communication through the pandemic has been wonderful. And that was really heartfelt to hear that from a parent, because as you know, it can be difficult sometimes to get all of the information back and forth. And sometimes I think parents may think that they're missing out on something. And so I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to keep that level of communication open during the pandemic, not only for staff, but also for parents. And the recommendations moving forward from this particular report was that now, because that format seems to be readily accepted by staff, would be to continue that website. So I am going to continue to maintain that website for staff and keep staff meeting notes in there. That when I have my staff meetings, I have someone taking minutes right there, so that if someone misses anything, they can go back and check the notes. They have live links. There's live links to DESE's information that comes up. There's IEP forms and other forms that teachers need. So I think that through this, I learned that this was a really good way to communicate with staff and for them to be able to have like a one-stop shop, to be able to go and look at things that they might need. So I'm going to continue to keep that website going for both parents and for staff. Although the parent ones, I'm going to switch a little bit. Hopefully next year I can take the name COVID out of it, and we can just go back to having a nice parent website. This year, what the evaluator decided to focus on was the hybrid and remote special education instruction, and how the survey that was developed was for staff to complete. It was for paraprofessionals and for teachers to complete on how this year went. How did hybrid go? How did they feel that they were meeting students' IEP needs and their goals and objectives? What things did they think worked well? What things did they think did not work well? And moving forward, was there anything that they wanted to keep and adopt and continue moving forward? The nice thing was that out of the 94 surveys that was sent out, 51 of responses were done, which was a 54% return rate, which is fantastic as far as surveys go. So we were very happy about that. And there was also an even split between teachers responding and paraprofessionals responding, which I think was good too, to be able to get both sides of that perspective too. The significant thing to note is that all staff indicated that they were able to deliver services on a student's IEP, either completely or somewhat. And that again was important, that we were able, that even the staff felt that we were able to deliver those services. The complete questions and answers are in that folder that Kate dropped them into for you. So you can look, any of you data junkies, that want to go in and look through all of the answers. There isn't any personally identifiable information. You'll know if it was a para or a teacher that was answering it, but you can see what responses they had. And some of the recommendations coming from this report was one to share the information. I shared it with staff last week, and I'm sharing it with you all now. I shared it with Paxal the last time we met too. And the other thing was that to really take note, we wanted to capture this moment in time. We're hoping that COVID and anything similar to COVID never ever happens again in our lifetime of education. But if it does, we wanted to be able to capture those strengths and weaknesses so that we could refer back to them and be able to implement some of the strengths and strengths that teachers and paras felt were good to be able to do, and then also make sure that we stay clear of the weaknesses. And then the other part of the report was to develop a plan moving forward. What area were we going to tackle next year? And so for next year, our evaluation plan is hopefully back on course for a complete evaluation of our related services and our substantially separate programs, which I will be very excited to see, because now, as of this past year, last year, we now have Achieve and TLC programs in each of the buildings. So we've got a nice cohesive continuity of programs throughout the district. And so it will be nice to be able to see that evaluation and what it shows us, and if there are any weaknesses, what we can improve upon in that process. So those are our two evaluations that we did last year and this year. Any quick questions about them? Right. And like I said, if you're going through the folder, if you look at any of that information and you have any further questions, please just let me know and I'll be happy to answer it. And then the next thing that Kate asked me to talk about was the 2021 Special Education Determination under Part B of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. And that's my life, people. I love these long terms that they give me to figure out and that I have to look at every year and do. So I just want to spread the love of that. But basically what it is every year, the state must identify the school district specific needs for technical assistance or intervention in the area of special education. There are 4 categories. There's meets improvement, or meets requirements, needs assistance, needs interventions, or needs substantial interventions. And up to this point, it's kind of been a cloudy question of how each of the districts got their designation, except for this year, they actually showed us the rubric that they used. And the rubric covers things like a 5-year cohort for graduation rates of students with disabilities, the annual dropout rate for students with disabilities, public school monitoring, special ed compliance data, how many complaints we had filed on the districts through our problem resolution system, and performance on special education performance plan, our annual report indicators, and also significant disproportionality. And Russell Johnson spoke about this last week, and he said that that DESE really wanted to try to become more transparent and develop consistency. And so that's why they're now showing everybody the rubrics and what each of those areas are in. I will tell you that once again, we scored in the top category. We are meets requirements. So we do not have to do anything that the state, they're putting other districts maybe into categories of needs assistance or needs technical advisories. We don't fall into that right now. So we are meets requirements. So we're at the top tier in that, and I hope we will continue to be at that top tier. And that's it.
Thank you. That's wonderful. And it's also, in listening to everything you said, it's wonderful too to find there are silver linings to all these things we have learned over the last year. Is there anyone on the committee that has a comment or a question? Mrs. Hanscom. Mr. Leighton?
I just wanted to say thank you, Ms. Hanscom, for the in-depth presentation, and congratulations on the ranking. I also want to say I'm glad the DESE and is actually posting the rubric and the same thing they expect from our teachers. So
Nice.
that's
Thank you very
good to
much.
hear.
Thank you.
All righty. So the next part of our meeting is the committee reorganization. So the first part of this is, I think we need to do is to elect the chairperson so we can continue with the rest of it.
Correct.
So
So-
in looking,
So I will take this piece until a chair is voted and elected, and then I will turn things over to the chair.
okay,
So we do need to nominate and elect a new chairperson. So I would entertain nominations. Mr. Leighton,
I'll nominate Carol Archambault as chair.
Mrs. Kelly,
I will second that.
are there any other nominations? All righty, then we can move forward and take a vote. First, I'll ask Mrs. Archambault, are you willing to accept the chair position?
I will accept the chair position.
All righty then, roll call vote. Ms. Shapiro, Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
and Mrs. Archambault.
Yes,
So I will turn it over to you, Chairperson Archambault.
all right. Well, now we will be, thank you. Now we will be looking for a vice chair. So I will be looking for a nomination for vice chair. Mrs. Kelly,
I would like to nominate Mr. Brian Leighton for vice chair position.
Ms. Shapiro,
I'll second that nomination.
any other nominations? Then we need to vote.
Ready for roll call. Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
I'll abstain.
and Mrs. Archambault.
Yes. So, Mr. Leighton, are you willing to be the vice chair?
Yes, thank you.
All righty. Next, we need the secretary position. Ms. Shapiro,
I'd like to nominate Laura Kelly.
Mr. Leighton,
I'll second that motion.
all right. Then we need to vote on that.
All right, Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
I will abstain.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
and Mrs. Archambault.
Yes. And Mrs. Kelly, is that all right with you to be the secretary?
That is okay by me.
All
Thank
righty.
you, Laura.
No problem.
Thank you very much. So the next part of this is to approve to continue all existing policies in effect for the ensuing year. So I read that as saying that we need a motion to continue all existing policies in effect for the next year. Mr. Leighton,
I'll make a motion to approve to continue all existing policies in effect for the ensuing year.
Ms. Shapiro,
I'll second that motion.
and the vote?
Roll call. Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
Mrs. Archambault.
Yes. And the third job here is to approve to authorize student activity funds in the following amounts. Primary school, 2,000, Turkey Hill Elementary School, 2,000, Lunenburg Middle School, 5,000, and Lunenburg High School, 10,000. Ms. Shapiro?
I'll make a motion to approve the annual student activity accounts as presented.
And a second, Ms. Kelly?
I will second that.
Any
Ready for roll
discussion?
call?
Okay,
All right, Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
Mrs. Archambault.
yes. The fourth issue is to approve a waiver to allow food and beverages with lids in the middle school, high school auditorium for the annual town meeting. Ms. Kelly,
I'll make a motion to approve the usage of food and drinks in the auditorium with the, food and drinks with a lid in the auditorium for a town meeting.
Mr. Leighton,
I'll second that motion.
All right. Roll call?
Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
and Mrs. Ashambo.
Yes. Now we have to appoint existing committees. We are minus one member. So we have two different ways we could do this. I would think what we probably should do is assign everybody a committee, assign the committees out, and then at the next meeting when Mr. Kelly joins us, we will shuffle. Because we don't want to assign him a committee he can't possibly attend. So if that's all right with everybody, does anybody have any other thoughts on how else to go about that? All right, then we'll plow through and do that. Should we assign these all and vote them all at once rather than, can we do that?
I think that unless there's an objection along the way, that you could vote them as a slate.
Okay, good. So the first is the official voting delegate to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. That is generally held by the chair, and I would be willing to do that. The second one is the legislative representative for school committee. Once again, that is generally held by the chair. So I will continue to do that unless someone else is dying to jump in. C is the spokesperson for the committee, along with Dr. Burnham. Generally, once again, that is the chair according to our protocol, so we will continue that way. Policy development and review. That is Mrs. Kelly and Mr. Leighton in this year. Is there any interest in a change up or?
I am fine staying with that committee if no one else wants to jump on.
I was gonna say the same thing. I can definitely step off of it, but I can continue on if needed.
So why don't we keep you there? And that may be one that if Mr. Kelly is interested, that might be something we could talk about at the next meeting. We'll have to have an agenda item for
Or
reviewing.
Sophie, if you're interested too, that might be something you could jump on if you want to switch up something.
I think I'm happy with you both holding that, and that's probably one that would be tough for me to make anyway, so I'm perfect with that.
Okay.
All right. Administrators and advisory capacity. There is a list of the administrators for next year. We have Mr. Santry, Mrs. Champagne, Mr. Adams, Mrs. Hanscom, Mr. Londa, at least for the beginning of the year. Mr. Cassidy, Mr. Maladridos, Mr. Bennell, and Mrs. Lawrenson. And there will be one other when the high school principal is named. The sick leave bank. Mrs. Kelly, you are serving on that with Mr. Cassidy. Is that something you wish to continue or somebody
I am.
else have interest?
Quite happy to continue unless someone wants to change it up, but I'm perfectly fine.
That does not meet very frequently, is that correct?
Not frequently at all.
So
I'd done it the year prior. Not that bad of a commitment.
I don't know if I know
Yeah,
Ms.
I would
Shapiro has
agree.
additional.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I would be interested in taking that if you're
Go ahead.
willing to step off, Laura.
Off you go, Sophie. No worries.
Thank you
I
so
think it's good
much.
to get experience from different committees too. so.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless there's
Thank
a-
you so much.
Okay. And of course, the next one is superintendent of schools. That will remain the same.
Thank you.
And- Thank you. And also the executive board member to Keystone Collaborative is also the superintendent. We won't take that from you. Finance committee. I don't mind staying on the finance committee it is a real-time consumer. I had a discussion with another committee member earlier this week about the finance committee versus capital planning. The last few years, the capital planning has been the chair, but it doesn't have to be. It wasn't before that. So I would not do both for sure. But I don't mind staying. But if somebody else is interested in doing FinCom, they're welcome to do that. It is a major time commitment.
I think maybe not this year for me, maybe next year I'll have that, but until the youngest has gotten a little bit older, I don't know if I can commit too much more.
I understand that. And I don't have one running around, so therefore.
Would you like
I-
mine?
No, not at all, thank you. I will, so I'll continue on with FinCom then.
I like that too, because I think you're a familiar face to them too. So I think that's a plus if you're willing to keep it. I think that'll be good.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that. And this year I have served on the Finance Committee Appointed Committee, and it only makes sense that that is the same person, I think. So I will continue with that. So that brings us to capital planning.
Do you want me to take capital planning then, since it's a little bit, since you didn't, what do you, I'm fine with that. Or Brian or Sophie, if you wanted to.
I probably can't handle the time commitment of capital planning, so between Brian and Laura.
I was going to say, do we know when they meet or how often they meet for capital planning? I know Wendy.
I
had that discussion
believe-
before.
I believe capital planning meets like once a month through the fall, and then it picks up towards budget season, and then it is finished at town meeting, is my understanding. I've never served on it, so I
It would
can't
be
promise
something that
that's correct.
I would be interested in.
Oh, Brian, go ahead.
Okay. Now we have the Wellness Advisory. And
I'm
so-
good staying on wellness advisory if nobody else is interested. They meet 4 times a year, usually like right after school, like 1 day a week.
Okay. If that's all right with everyone. PTO.
I'm
Yeah,
also
so-
good staying on PTO if we want, unless anybody else wants it.
The only thing I would add is I do try to attend as many as I can, but if you want to do it for that experience too, I'm fine with that too, but I can help out with that if need be. Or I could be your backup if you need it.
Yeah, that would be great, actually. That would be wonderful.
Okay. Then we have Paxel, which I have done this year. I don't mind continuing. Once again, that is a committee that meets 4 times a year. So I don't mind continuing with it, or if somebody else would like to.
I wouldn't mind taking that one on for just a little bit
Okay.
more experience, if that's okay with you.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, and I think it would be good to alleviate Carol some
Yeah, right, I know.
spots.
Thanks. So it sounds like it's going to be an exciting year with Paxel.
Yeah.
Now the school council representatives. Do we want to leave them as they are? Which would be Sophie with the high school, I have the middle school, Brian has the elementary school, and Laura the primary school. And then if Mr. Kelly wishes, when he joins us, to jump on one of those, we can shuffle things around a little.
I'm fine with that, but Brian, I know you have kiddos in the primary school too, so I didn't know, like, did you want to switch a year?
I
It's up
was
to you.
gonna ask, when are your kids going to Turkey Hill?
I got one in Turkey Hill and one in the primary next year, so
Yeah,
I'm
so we
fine
can-
with whatever.
We could do a swap if you want. I
swap?
think that would be good. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
And I'm good staying on his high school. I'm fairly sure that Mr. Kelly does have kids at the high school, so he might want to take that one, but I'm good staying on either way.
Okay. Athletic Advisory Committee. Brian, that's yours at the moment.
Yeah, so I enjoy the athletic part of it. I'd like to stay on.
Okay. Unless anybody else is dying to jump in. Okay. Lifelong Learning Advisory, that was Wendy's.
Do we know how often they meet?
Very infrequently, probably about once a year. During COVID, we weren't running any of the adult learning programs, so there was no meeting during this past year.
I'm fine with her. Sophie, is that something good for you or because of your schedule, or would you rather one of us take it? It's totally up to you.
I can take it if nobody else wants it.
It's totally, I don't mind.
I feel like I'm filling up quick.
Yeah, I can take it.
Okay. And the Passios Building Design Committee. Oh, you're gonna hang on that, Brian, or?
So I feel like I want to progress that to the end. I feel like that makes more sense.
Okay, so shall I read the slate
Sure
before we
thing.
take a vote?
Sure thing.
All righty. So the official voting delegate to MASC, Mrs. Archambault. The legislative representative for school committee, Mrs. Archambault. The spokesperson, along with the superintendent of schools, also Mrs. Archambault. Policy development and review, Mrs. Kelly and Mr. Leighton. Our administrators in advisory capacity, all of the principals and department heads, including Mr. Santry, Mrs. Champagne, Mr. Adams, Mrs. Hanscom, Mr. Londa, Mr. Cassidy, Mr. Malandrinos, Mr. Bunnell, and Mrs. Lorenzen. Sick leave bank will be Ms. Shapiro, along with Mr. Cassidy. I will happily remain as the superintendent of schools. I will also be happy to continue as your representative to the Keystone Collaborative Executive Board. Finance Committee Representative, Mrs. Archambault. The Finance Committee Appointing Committee, also Mrs. Archambault. Capital Planning Committee, Mr. Leighton. Wellness Advisory Committee, Ms. Shapiro. PTO Liaison is Ms. Shapiro with Mr. Leighton as an alternate. Paxal Liaison, Mrs. Kelly. Lunenburg High School School Advisory Council reps. The high school is Ms. Shapiro. The middle school, Mrs. Archambault. Turkey Hill Elementary School, Mrs. Kelly. And the primary school, Mr. Leighton. Athletic Advisory Committee, Mr. Leighton. Lifelong Learning Advisory, Ms. Shapiro, and the TC Passios Building Design Committee, Mr. Leighton. Did I record all of those accurately?
Looks good to me. So we would need a motion to vote on these as presented, as read by the superintendent. Ms. Shapiro,
Sophie Shapiro, and I will motion to approve the slate as read by Dr. Burnham.
Mr. Leighton.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
Mrs. Archambault.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Congratulations
thank you.
on your new committees.
Another busy year.
Congratulations on still being superintendent.
So we shall then, on recommendation of the business manager, we are going to table the paraprofessional contract ratification until the next meeting. And
Thank you.
continue.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And then we have a donation.
We do have a donation this evening. We have a check in the amount of $1.70 from the Box Tops for Education, and these funds will be deposited in the Turkey Hill gift account, and I would recommend that we accept the donation.
Ms. Kelly,
It looks like it's for actually $11.70, not $1.
Let me check the actual check.
Yes.
No, I'm looking at the actual check, and it is written out for $1.70.
Oh,
oh, yeah, the copy that's in our folder.
It does, it says 1170.
do we need to check on that before we vote?
Oh, wait,
or-
no, so sorry. There is a second check
Oh,
on the back side of the page. That one is in the amount of $11.70. Also from Box Tops for Education, again, to be deposited in the Turkey Hill gift account. So the total amount to be deposited would be $13.40.
there we go.
And I would recommend that we accept that donation.
Do I have a motion? Ms. Kelly
I will make a motion to accept the donation of the $13.40.
and a second? Ms. Shapiro?
I'll second that motion.
Ready for roll call?
We are.
Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
and Mrs. Archambault.
Yes. Now we're moving to updated DESI guidelines.
So I think we all got a little bit of a surprise on Monday with the governor's announcement. And there was information relative to schools that was also included in the governor's announcement. And written guidelines are coming forward now from DESI. Some of them are still under review. The Department of Ed did release updated guidance for masking outdoors. On May 17th, 2021, after consultation with the Mass COVID Command Center's Medical Advisory Board, the governor announced that given the low rate of outdoor transmission of COVID-19, students no longer have to wear masks when outdoors, even if distance cannot be maintained. Effective May 18th, this guidance update applies to recess physical education, youth sports, and outdoor learning environments. Adults must continue to wear masks outdoors if distancing cannot be maintained. And at this time, adults and students must continue to wear masks indoors. Additionally, after consultation with the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, it has been determined that close contacts who were exposed to a COVID-19 positive individual while outdoors at recess do not have to quarantine. DESI will be issuing updated protocols for their responding to COVID-19 scenarios document. Additionally, on May 17th, after consultation with the Mass COVID Command Center's Medical Advisory Board, the governor announced that given the low likelihood of surface transmission of COVID-19, schools no longer have to avoid sharing objects. This includes classroom materials, items for physical education, and art supplies. Shared objects no longer have to be cleaned or disinfected between use and should follow the updated cleaning guidance that will be provided. Regarding cleaning of schools, based on CDC guidance and updated information on the low likelihood of surface transmission, schools now only need to clean high-touch surfaces such as door handles, bus seats, and drinking fountains, and shared objects within the school and on school transport vehicles once daily. There are some exceptions to that. As an example, if your community is in a high risk, elevated level of COVID prevalence in the community. In alignment with the state guidance, the gathering limits for school events with outside participants will be lifted starting May 29th. Other health and safety measures such as masking, distancing, and other protocols outlined in the DESE's supplemental guidance for student groups and school events for school year 2020-2021 will still apply. And DESE also provided a recommendation relative to air conditioner use. It is allowable, but people should be alerted to the fact that air conditioners are not really designed for the purpose of ventilation. It's more recirculating air that's in the space. And we would have to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, we would need to be cleaning the filters in those individual units. That is not a concern, however, for a building-wide climate control system like we have at the middle high school. I do have Mrs. McGuire here this evening. We've been chatting a bit about what this now means for us in the Lunenburg Public Schools. And I don't have a recommendation for you this evening for your consideration or for a vote, but I thought it was worth a conversation. Mrs. McGuire and I feel like we want to have time to really think about the logistics of such a change. It sounds very simple. Kids can just stop wearing masks outside, but it's a lot more complex than that. In terms of when the children get outside and take a mask off, where do they go? Where do those masks go? How do they store them appropriately? Handle them in a way that is appropriate and safe and reduces risk. You know, even for, you know, the cleaning in between, you know, we would like some time, I think, to give some real consideration to the logistics of any of these changes. You know, if these changes were coming and we had, you know, 2.5 or 3 months left of school, we have 4 weeks remaining. And, you know, we are a little bit concerned that parents made a decision to return their kiddos to school 5 days a week, given the protocols that were in place. To change them now, I'm not sure what the impact would be to families not feeling comfortable any longer having their children attending school 5 days a week. Additionally, relative to the cleaning protocols, those are conversations that have been ongoing with the teachers union throughout the year. And I really feel like we would like to have some time to consider any changes that might be made and the potential impact of changes that might be made. And I think that we're not looking to make any changes just yet. If there are changes, we would like to be able to bring them forward to you at the June 2nd meeting for your consideration, which means we would essentially be making a change for the last 2 weeks of the school year. Again, it sounds very simple and it sounds like the great news we've all been waiting for. But when you really start to think about implementation, it's more complex than it sounds. And, you know, I will admit that there's a part of me that feels like we we just have 4 more weeks left? Could we just maintain what we're doing? Because what we're doing is working. And maybe we shouldn't take any risks with the last 4 weeks of school. But I understand that the kids have mask fatigue, particularly at the upper grades. They're getting frustrated. I think they feel like they want to be done with it. And many of our older students are now fully vaccinated, right? Kiddos at the upper grades are eligible for vaccination, and some of them have been fully vaccinated, and they would really like to be able to take the mask off. I'm not sure what the comfort level of parents is going to be, particularly if your child is not yet vaccinated. You know, it adds a different layer of policing to, you know, I mean, we could say parents can notify us that their child is still expected to continue to wear a mask for safety reasons for the family. However, then, you know, the administrators are now in the position of making sure that the kids who are supposed to have a mask on as a family request have the mask on. And it also creates a circumstance where there's potential peer pressure. We all know from the news that adults don't handle this always in the best way. And we do know that some people kind of put pressure on other adults. You know, mandates have been lifted. You need to take your mask off. You shouldn't be wearing one. And if the adults can't manage to allow individuals to make choices for themselves and their own health, I'm not sure what to expect in terms of peer pressure amongst the kids. So these are things that we're considering. I would like, Mrs. McGuire to jump in and add any of her thoughts to this. But I think it's fair to say that we would like some time to consider the implications of just adopting this new guidance that's come out. But I'll turn it over to Mrs. McGuire.
Well, I would like to echo pretty much everything that Dr. Burnham said. We've discussed this. We feel like the kids, I feel like the kids really need this, but I need to pump the brakes a little bit. The guidance, for example, says I don't have to quarantine students who have had outdoor recess. It doesn't say anything about physical education. So I have incomplete guidance right now. On the dashboard, I had 2 positive cases in the district last week, and so far we have 1 for this week. The numbers are absolutely better in town, but we still have to physically deal with all of this. And who are we quarantining? What is our guidance? And to put this out, and then I have to implement it tomorrow. I don't have everything in place. I of course would go to Neshoba for their guidance, but it's incomplete. So I know the kids need this, but I would just like a little bit more time for a little further full guidance especially for quarantine. It's really not complete at all.
Additionally, I did include in my communication out to families on Monday evening that even though there had been some changes announced by the governor, that we were not looking to make those changes just yet. But I would like to, ask for your thoughts on this matter.
Ms. Shapiro?
First of all, I just want to thank both Dr. Burnham and Mrs. McGuire for all the information you presented. That's absolutely wonderful, and I agree with everything that you're saying. I think it's also just important to bring up, like, for the sake of discussion, that recess age students are the same age group of people who aren't permitted to get vaccinated. So that's an added risk for them. They don't have that added layer of security that middle and high school students have. And just regarding the lift of the mask mandate for fully vaccinated people, that's also another added task for administration and teachers to have to try and track down students' vaccination cards to see if they're actually vaccinated and enforcing who can wear a mask and who can't. And I think where it can't just be a blanket, like, not mask mandate or enforcing the mask mandate. It's just creating, like Dr. Burnham said, there's a month left, and I think that would just be throwing a whole other mess and more work into the hands of already overwhelmed administrators and teachers.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Laitman?
Yeah, I guess I would say I want to make sure we're following the science, and I think indoors masks, everybody in masks. I would like to see parents being surveyed to get their comfort level of how they would feel sending their students back or having their students back with no masks at recess. Because I think, like the data is showing, that it's not spreading outdoors, that it's an indoor thing. So I would definitely want to see that. And I do agree with you. I think planning is very important. It would be nice to see something by that June 2nd next school committee meeting. Though.
I guess my comment would be that I have appreciated how careful the planning has been on every move at every juncture at keeping the students safe. I understand that it's very difficult for young kids to keep their mask on when it's hot. I also have been trying to figure out, what are they gonna do with them? Are you gonna stick them in your pocket? I mean, if you don't have a pocket, they're gonna end up being slingshots. I don't know how that would work. So definitely there would need to be planning. However, I do agree with Mr. Laitman that it's very difficult to follow the science because we've been told for a whole year to be careful, keep your face covered, you know, and taking off my mask in a parking lot, I'm like, oh, should I do that? Should I do that? You know, so it's really hard to stick your toe in the water. You're gonna say, no, the science says it's fine. The science says I can do this. It's a really tricky matter. So I appreciate your careful consideration moving forward and realizing that you're almost there. It's almost the end. You know, if it creates this huge uproar, you know, that's another issue. But I think surveying the parents would be definitely something that I think should be done. Mr. Laitman?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there. My 4-year-old has like a little lanyard that he uses too for his face mask. So
Oh.
that might be an idea to look into as well. For the little ones.
Any
And
other comments?
I would just offer this up for consideration too. When the decision was made by the Department of Ed to mandate a return to school, they did provide the data and then I was able to share that data with all of you and with the community. With this most recent information that's coming from DESE, and I know more documentation will be coming from DESE. Right now, they didn't provide the data that I could present to everyone to maybe help people feel a bit more reassured about a decision relative to not having to clean surfaces or wearing masks outside. So perhaps some of that data will be coming in the days ahead. But I don't have that to share with you now. I don't have it to review for myself with Mrs. McGuire. So as I said, it's great news, right? Great news. We're coming to the close of the pandemic, we hope, right? But at the same time, there is a lot of logistical planning that we need to be able to put into place. And we agree, you know, the comfort level of the parents is going to be important. And quite frankly, relative to the cleaning, the comfort level of the teachers is going to be important as well. So we need a little bit more time to assess how different groups feel about the guidance and which way is the best way forward.
Okay, Well, thank you very much for the information. We appreciate it. All right, now we're on to old business, public comments, open to anything. Is there anyone on the committee with the public comment? Anyone in the public with the public comment? I'm not seeing any. Then we'll continue on with reports, starting with the Athletic Advisory Committee.
Sorry, we have not met yet. Plan to meet in June.
All righty. Next is Finance Committee. Finance Committee met on the 13th of May. There were a lot of discussions about procedures for next year for organizing things that they found weren't as smooth as they had hoped this year. Things like ensuring that all town moneyed articles do have a public hearing, making the infrastructure needs in town, looking at those through the lens of affordability. They were looking at things like a more comprehensive 5 to 10-year plan and creating a way to compare personal and capital expenses across all departments. They're also looking to invite the legislators. There's a lot of frustration with the unfair, well, what we perceive is the unfair amount that this town bears as far as the Student Opportunity Act that many other communities that we feel we are like do fare better than we do as far as the funds. They also passed a request from Capital Planning to increase the project threshold from 10,000 to 20,000, and this needs to go to the select board to be voted. The town manager stated that the Senate released their budget, showing the town about a $7,000 increase over the governor's budget. Their next meeting is June 10th, and the Finance Committee Appointing Committee will meet to fill 2 vacancies on June 15th. So that's the FinCom report. PTO?
The PTO met Monday, the 10th. Teacher Appreciation Week was the beginning of this month. Last month, the PTO formed a group and they put together some treats and some cards and delivered them to all 4 schools. So thank you to the Teacher Appreciation Committee and of course to the teachers as well. The PTO is working on ideas and logistics for Bus Driver Appreciation Week. The PTO had their elections. So congratulations to everyone and thank you for stepping up. There are still the open positions of co-secretary, forums, co-fundraising, co-membership, co-publicity, and cultural enrichment if anyone is interested in running. And their next meeting is June 14th.
Thank you. Now on to school councils, the primary school.
The primary school met on Monday. Our pre-K and first grade representatives were unable to join us, but kindergarten are working on some plants and farms and tadpoles where they're watching the tadpoles hatching, watching them grow and documenting the whole process. Moving forward for the rest of this year, they're going to be working to get the kindergartners ready for end of year assessment, and they'll be reviewing skills such as writing numbers and names and giving them the confidence going into assessment. Second grade finished up landforms where the students created islands made out of salto, and then they had to write convincing letters to tell people why they should visit their islands. That was so cute. They are now reading folktales, and they are still working on addition and subtraction while moving into geometry and measurement. They're also working on ancestor projects where they're researching a country where there's family members are from and looking at the food, flags, money, and all that from the different countries. We spent a lot of the meeting discussing the progress and updates to the CSIP and reviewing and editing the student handbook. There will be no move update for second grade into Turkey Hill, but they're working on getting welcome videos for the kids. There's still talks, hopefully, about a kindergarten social prior to the school year beginning. The primary school is looking for some pool noodle donations so they can create a pool noodle obstacle course. So feel free to drop off some noodles to the primary school front desk. And this was the last meeting of the school year. So I just wanted to say a huge congratulations to the primary school on such a successful year and wish the staff a very relaxing summer.
All right, thank you very much. Turkey Hill,
We have not met.
the middle school will be meeting on Monday and the high school.
The high school will be meeting on Tuesday, June 1st.
All right. Capital planning, we have no
Fine.
representative now, but Wendy's not here, but I don't believe they've met. Or actually, they probably have to talk about the change in the limit, the 10,000 to 20,000. But we'll find out. Wellness advisory?
We met on Tuesday, the 11th. They are looking into the details for the ROAR, like bullying presentation and gathering limits surrounding that. An update from health services. Busy April, there were a lot of quarantines, but things have settled down a bit since April break. Speaking of April break, the Wellness Advisory Committee was very grateful for our decision to require testing after travel, and parents were great about that policy. So thank you to the parents as well. There are some new guidelines from DESE regarding quarantine. So if you're identified as a contact within 0 to 3 feet, you do have to quarantine. 3 to 6 feet, you will be advised, but if both parties were wearing their masks, they are no longer required to quarantine. The school will provide the information that they were in relatively close contact though, so if that individual does choose to quarantine, they absolutely can. And anyone who's been vaccinated or has been COVID positive in the last 90 days does not need to quarantine. And again, this just supports all the data that transmission hasn't really been happening in the schools with the current guidelines. Little update about Kylie's care kits. Kylie has graduated from high school and her grandmother is looking to transfer responsibility. There is a family at the primary school that is working on transitioning and taking it over. Primary school in Lunenburg, which is great.
Wow.
Yeah, super exciting. So this program will continue, but with some slight changes. The school nurses will still handle referrals, but hopefully the main responsibility will transfer away from the school nurses so that they can have one less thing on their plate. The cafeteria staff is working on providing meals through the school for the summer. They're still working out the logistics for that. They also just wanted to reiterate that families can reach out to the Lions Club food pantry as well if they're in need. There has been an uptick in the visits to the nurse's office for when students need a little break or a quiet place. Jamie Millett is working with these kids and helping them out. Jamie has started some groups and the schools have started using a referral service for mental health support for students too, because the hardest thing for kids that age is finding providers. And then we did we did a primary and Turkey Hill wellness policy update that was with Nadine Lorenzen and Katie McGuire. Essentially, we went through the wellness policies at each building and determined areas of practice that needed improvement. Overall, it's looking pretty good, but we definitely did identify some areas that we'll be working on. We will have a wellness policy update for the middle high school next month. And just a reminder to students to bring reusable water bottles for the fill stations as the weather gets warmer, because there's a lot of kids coming down to the nurse looking for water and they're just trying to reduce that traffic. And our next meeting will be June 8th. Very
Thank
busy.
you very much. Sounds very busy. The next committee is PacSal. And I had this long report that between Dr. Burnham and Mrs. Hanscom, you sort of included everything, but I will say that Matthew and Lindsay Brenner are very enthusiastic and very excited to see this committee really take hold and have higher attendance and higher participation. And I think you will find next year that that this program will really grow. Passios Building Design Committee.
We plan to meet next Wednesday.
All right. Are there any topics for future discussion that anyone has? We do need to make sure that we relook at the committee assignments when Mr. Kelly is with us. Ms. Shapiro?
I think also it seemed like most of us were interested in having another discussion about the updated DESI guidance at the
Yes.
next meeting.
Thank you. If there isn't anything else, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Ms. Kelly?
I will make a motion to adjourn at 8:23 PM.
And Mr. Leighton?
Second that motion.
All right,
Ready for roll call?
we are.
Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
and Mrs. Archambault.
Yes.
Thank you all. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.
Night.